Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 80 Rebuild. My name is Kye.
And my name is Jez. We're also known as Santa Outback.
In this episode, we're pulling down the FTE engine and seeing what we have to work with.
When we started this rebuild, we knew that there was going to be some setbacks, and as you'll see in this episode, things don't always go to plan.
That's fun. So stay tuned, kick back, and enjoy the episode.
You're just having a chat to your mate, you know?
That's how I would talk to my mate.
Well, why?
We've just done a trip to Mandurah. It's about an hour there and an hour back.
We went to pick up the new engine that we purchased from a guy on Marketplace. We got a bloody good bargain on this, considering the price of these engines is quite expensive.
As you can see, we're reversing the trailer in to remove the engine with the hoist, as that's pretty much the only thing we have to remove it.
It's also the safest way to not damage it. This is precious cargo. And also not to mention the most expensive item of this entire rebuild. Did you know?
Interesting facts. Just lowering it down onto the stand that has wheels on it that the bloke made for the engine. He was kind enough to let me keep that, which was handy later on.
Next up is pulling everything out of the box to see what came with the engine.
We have a full factory engine loom for a HD-J79. We have the ECU, we have the spill module, and also the foot pedal and cluster. What we're going to do now is just have a look over everything. I'm going to probably pull a few bits off this, parts I know I'm not going to need, get it down to maybe just where the head's at, and pull the rock cover off, have a look inside, just assess what the engine looks like. The reason why we decided to go with this engine is because they are a bulletproof straight inline 6 engine. They're known to take a lot of abuse and still perform well. There's plenty of FTEs out there, stock and custom, well over 500,000 Ks.
Not only is the choice to go with this engine based on performance and reliability, it's also Kye's dream engine, so when it came up on Facebook Marketplace, it was hard to say no to.
Ever since putting an FTE engine in my old 80, I fell in love with it, and I wanted to do the same with this build, but I was chasing more power, which is not quite as possible with an FT engine. Being mechanical, they are limited to how much they can actually create. I'm trying to get the turbo off at the moment, as it's a bit of a struggle. As you can see, I'm just stripping down the top part of the engine at the moment, removing the EGR pipe. They'll be chucked in the bin because it's garbage.
It's important to do checkovers like this. You want to make sure it's in great condition before you're actually putting the engine in the car. Once it's in, there's no going back unless you're ready to pull that thing out again.
The same thing is if you're buying any engine really, like you don't want to buy something and slap it straight into a car and hope that whoever you bought it from says it's as good as it is.
Yeah, definitely important not to take someone's word for it and just double check and make sure it's up to your standard.
As we found with this engine, the block is pretty much buggered.
Yeah, she's gone. It was half corroded behind the turbo, so no go with using that one.
I did inspect the engine as best I could. With all the parts on the engine, it's quite hard to see on that side of the block. However, it did look in really good nick. It was in good nick from what I could see, physically see, but you're not going to sit there and strip down a turbo and intake at old mate's place before you go buy the engine. It's just something that's unfortunate. He had told me that he had never pulled the engine down. It just is what it is at this stage.
And look, at the end of the day, it's the risk you take with buying anything secondhand. Doesn't matter if it's an engine for a car or a fridge. You got to expect the unexpected, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
In our case, we were lucky enough that financially we could cop that hit. It is unfortunate that it wasn't in perfect condition, but also it's not a perfect world and shit happens.
That's exactly right. So we've got the turbo off now. Just looking at pulling the intake off. This intake is a factory intake that will not be used again on this engine. The harness that we're going to be running is not going to require any of the sensors on the intake and deletes that from being used. And at this stage of the engine build, the harness that I was going to be using, which has now changed, would have used the factory ECU, which has limitations. Engine intake's off.
Next up, we're pulling off the aircon compressor.
This will be reused, hopefully. The condition of it isn't terrible. We might buy a new clutch assembly for the front end of it, as the bearing sounds a bit crappy. Now it starts to get interesting as we have found corrosion on the block. This is something that we hope we wouldn't find. As you can see, I've started cleaning back the block, and as I've dug deeper and deeper, took more chunks of corrosion off, hoping for the best, and
Getting the worst.
Yeah, getting the worst pretty much. Within about half an hour cleaning it, I started to see not water running out, but because you could see wet patches on the block, and that pretty much says that water from inside or coolant from inside the block has started to seep through.
To be honest, this is probably going to be one of the biggest hiccups of the entire car rebuild. So I suppose silver lining is we're getting it out the way sooner rather than later.
So now we're just removing the clutch and the flywheel. This clutch is probably something we're not going to use ever again. Might keep it for a future project, not sure yet, but there's no point chucking it out. Secondhand, they're not worth anything. The flywheel I'm keeping, which is a genuine Toyota flywheel, which is something I originally wanted to keep on the engine. We'll be going down the route of an NPC clutch and flywheel, and they have a specially designed flywheel for their clutch. This engine had almost 300,000 Ks on it, which is not a lot for an FTE. Because of the performance upgrades that we're putting inside the engine, we have to pull it down anyway to replace some things.
However, if we were keeping this stock, we would still do the same just to check over everything, make sure everything's all good.
So now we're just removing the timing belt and pulleys.
These rubber timing belts are known to snap and cause engine failure. Anytime you're purchasing an FTE engine, this should be the first thing that you replace, as well as the hydraulic tensioner.
People replace the rubber timing belt but forget to replace the hydraulic tensioner, and this is another thing that actually causes failure inside the engine. Once the hydraulic tensioner loses its
tension?
yeah, it loses its tension pretty much. It gets old, they leak. The hydraulic oil bypasses the seals, loosens, your timing belt goes loose, and then, yeah, jumps off. Then your valves hit your pistons, and then it's no fun anymore.
That was a perfect example of when the student becomes the teacher.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, next up is removing the rocket cover and also removing the valve train.
We're hoping to reuse the cam, but we will send it off to the machine shops and see what the specs are on it. Another known thing to fail when your timing belt snaps is your rocker shaft caps. When your piston comes up, smashes your valve. The thing on the end of the valve is your rocker arm, and once that has nowhere to go, it pretty much snaps the caps in half. Because these engines are an interference engine, meaning when your piston's at top dead center and your valve moves down, it will hit the piston.
It'll do it. It will do it.
And destroy it. And you'll be up for thousands and thousands of dollars.
Trust us.
Hasn't happened, but I've heard many and many stories, seen it happen before, and pretty much when that goes bang, you're up 10 grand straight away.
Shit's expensive. Who has a spare 10 grand? So do it properly, kids.
And always go genuine. Do not use aftermarket on any seal, any component on an engine. So now we're removing the injectors. This was quite hard. I was trying to make up a slide hammer, but I didn't want to screw it into the end of the injector. Just hated that idea. So I ended up putting a very small spanner across the bridge and using a lever bar just to pop them up, and it managed to work.
Next up is stripping down the timing gear casing.
I did remove the harmonic balancer. It was an absolute nightmare to get the bolt out. I tried locking the flywheel up and cracking off with a 3/4 bar. I just ended up bending my pry bar. So next thing was a bit of heat, hit it with a rattle gun, and then my 3/4 Milwaukee.
Hope for the best.
Then my 3/4 Milwaukee gun decided to shit itself, so that was great.
We really are like hoping for the best and getting the worst. You know what? It's just building resilience.
So I heated that thing up till it was not glowing, but it was pretty hot. I had to take the engine up to the top shed where there's air and sit on it for about a couple of minutes with a 1/2-inch air gun, and it only just managed to crack it.
Let's just say PPE was worn. Maybe.
No one was injured in the making of this video. Now I'm just pulling off the oil cooler housing. We need to do this because we need to inspect the oil cooler itself and also all the check valves.
It did appear fine from the outside, but after further inspection, the oil cooler and oil housing were full of corrosion.
Some more bad news, but I'm glad we found it now and it did not create a issue later on when the engine was in the car running. So now we're just removing the head with an endless chain set up on top of the roof. Not really the safest way to do it, but it is what it is all we have. These head bolts need to be removed in a pattern so it does not warp the head. We'll be getting the head decked anyway, so it's not a major issue. We're just moving the engine out of the way, just having a quick look at the boards, even though it doesn't really matter because we're not using the block. Just wanted to see what condition it was in, and then we're just removing the head gasket.
Basically, anything with corrosion and the engine is a no-go. You want to jump onto that as soon as possible. It will become a bigger issue later down the track.
And if you're not sure whether it's still good to use or not, it's just better to get a new part. Yeah, it might be fine, but how long will it be fine for?
And the last thing you want is to be touring somewhere remote, maybe even by yourself, and something very bad to happen.
Obviously, this will be our touring rig, so anything that looks sketchy will be replaced instantly.
You quite often see people travelling around Australia have major mechanical issues on the road. Yes, this rebuild is a long labour of love process, but we would rather that and have less issues on the road. Could not imagine having to get something sorted in another state, let alone having to get a car towed back home. We just want to do it right the first time, and then if there's any issues on the road when we are touring, hoping that they're just minor issues.
So we're just switching it from the stand that it came on to an actual engine stand, so we can rotate the engine over, pull the sump off and remove the pistons. So I'm just pulling off the oil pickup, which all looks fine, which is great. Now I'm just going one by one, pulling out each piston, numbering them. The pistons and the rods are something we're not going to reuse, as the new block comes with new pistons and we are going billet con rods.
This is the final part of the engine that needs to be stripped.
So now it's basically just assess the engine, start putting the parts list together, ordering the parts.
What's going on here?
I'm wishing it's going down the aisle and seeing what I'm missing.
What are you getting?
Something like $14. I needed small files, like cleaning up edges.
Oh yeah. Kye reckons I'm bad when I walk into a shop. Needs to look at himself when he walks into Total Tools, don't ya?
So we just went to Toyota to pick up this part here because I lost the other one. Don't know where it is.
I didn't know that.
It was only $36.
Toyota's beginning to feel like second home. We're
Why
going to
I
come back in a
haven't
week.
bought a lot of parts from Toyota. Bought them from a different company, which is still genuine.
So what parts are you getting shipped over from over east?
Just the drain for the cylinder block, water drain, because the place where I've been getting my parts from doesn't have any in stock.
Yeah.
So I do have to go genuine for some things.
And they've said
I have to go to Toyota sometimes.
They've just said that there's like none in WA, so they've got to get them shipped over from interstate, so it'll take about a week.
Yeah, which isn't too bad. It's not going to hold the rebuild up. I still have one, but it's just because of the block being so corroded and rusted, it's also pretty much stuffed that as well, so I have to get another one.
Anyways, that's us. What is it? That's all.
That's all
from us today. I need another nap. So that wraps up episode 2 and all of the work that we've done so far for the engine rebuild.
So just a recap, we picked the engine up, we've stripped it down, we've assessed what's buggered and what needs to be replaced. We started ordering parts and started to get some tools together that we'll need to assemble the engine.
In the next episode, we're going into depth with the car and engine bay teardown process.
We'll be doing things like pulling both engines out of the 80, the trans, the fuel tank out of this 80. The front ends will have to come off, bull bars off, fuel lines off this 80.
All of our social media links are linked down below. If you have any questions or you want to know more information about what we're doing, you can always comment down below or reach out to us directly on Instagram. We're looking forward to having you guys follow along on this car rebuild journey, and if you'd like to stay in the loop, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
But that's it for now, so we'll catch you on the next episode.
See ya.